So a couple days back, it was announced that Blade has lost its director. That immediately calls to mind, who should direct the MCU Blade film? So, who are some names I would throw out there to potentially direct this project? First up, I'm going to go with Dev Patel. This one's kind of outside the box, but he just put out his first movie, Monkey Man, which he wrote it and starred and directed the film. And I think it's got a little bit too much in there, tries to tackle a little bit too much. So, like on the story script side to it, perhaps maybe he should have had someone else carry some of that load a lot more for him, or do some of the editing on what's in there. But as for the direction itself, he was pulling in all of the same influences that influenced the original Blade, but from a different perspective, obviously during a different era. It had stylistically certain elements of kind of people compared to like John Wick, because you have stylized action in nightclubs. Original Blade is filled with nightclubs and stylized action. And so there's a lot of the things that were really good in Monkey Man, I think that he could bring over to Blade. And maybe you get the guy that wrote Logan to do the script, and you get the style from Dev Patel, and you could do something really cool there. Then we have Chad Stahelski. He was on my previous version of this list. Obviously, he's a top action director right now. And you think of what you want for a Blade movie: awesome action, stylized action, great atmosphere, fun world building, and kind of a rich world to explore. That's what John Wick did so well. And you could just switch out World of Assassins for World of Vampires, and you can just immediately see how exactly what he brought to John Wick, you bring to Marvel's World of Vampires. That could be very cool. He's about to go do Highlander, so we'd have to delay probably making this movie for a while, but that's happening anyway. Then we have Sam Hargrave direct, like several different things are a big plus for him. So he directed the Extraction movies that I think have phenomenal action in them, very good action films. Maybe don't have like the world building and the like generic aesthetic cool style of the John Wick films, but on the stunt work side, just as good as the John Wick films, just in a very different sort of way. He's also has deep ties to Marvel, where he was stuntman for Chris Evans, stuntman for Hugh Jackman, and then he was a stunt coordinator, second unit director on Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. He's very plugged in at Marvel. That's why Chris Hemsworth starred in the Extraction movies, and were written by one of the Russos, like deep ties over there. He knows the system, can do awesome action. Once again, if you got the guy that wrote Logan doing a Blade script with the action from Sam Hargrave, you could do a lot of really cool stuff. Oh yeah, and his brother was America's ass in Endgame. Big plus for him. Next one on here, I'll go Adil and Balil. These are the guys that did the last two Bad Boys films, which I think are the two best Bad Boys films. They're able to have a nice aesthetic to, once again, a lot of nightclub scenes, sequences like that. The action is handled really well. There's a lot of creativity in the use of their cameras in the films. And so I just see a lot that could work there. And I would assume, because it is Marvel, it will be a little bit lighter than the Wesley Snipes films, and maybe less weird. But that's what the Bad Boys films had. Action plus comedy to them. So you could see that making a little bit of sense. They are the guys that directed the canceled Batgirl movie that was made and shelved. So some people look at that and they go, they did get to make a superhero movie, but apparently it was so bad that it totally scrapped. And there's a side to it where you go, yeah, I can see what you're saying. But there's a lot of things that went very wrong with that production, where they were saying early on, like, we need another pass on the script. You're like, the script you have isn't ready yet. Like, no, we'll do the best you can. We'll work on it later on. And then they didn't want to work on it later on. And that's why it didn't end up happening. So there's other kind of things kind of going on here. Another one outside the box a little bit. Ilya Naishuller. I'm certain I mispronounced that. This is the director of Nobody, the Bob Odenkirk film from a few years back that they are actually about to shoot the sequel to. Another one that just has really cool action to it. Very visceral, once again, kind of world building, taking kind of an average Joe, making him an action hero. Sounds cool to me. Potentially there's something there. And then big name in the world of Marvel, Ryan Coogler. So I know there's discussions of like these Wakanda TV shows, or maybe his name's frequently tossed around and maybe doing one of the Avengers films. He doesn't have like a thing that he's currently actually he's in New Orleans shooting an original film right now. I was actually at the world premiere of the movie Abigail, and the Overlook Film Festival with Cody Leach and some other friends, and Ryan Coogler was just there because he was in New Orleans where this film festival was taking place, and so then Radio Silence, the directors of Abigail, were like, "Hey, Ryan, want to come to the premiere of our movie?" So he just showed up. So we're leaving, just walking outside, and Cody Leach is like, "That's Ryan Coogler. I'm going to go get a picture with him." So he is doing something right now, but that was several months ago, and it's not a gigantic film, so it's probably might even be done filming by now, in which case maybe he's freed up this fall to tackle Blade. Then I got James Wan, where I'm a pretty big pretty massive James Wan fan, and I think he has a lot of things going for him when it comes to doing something like Blade, which is action, comic book movie, little bit of horror. And that's everything that James Wan's career has been. Obviously, he's a legend in the world of horror, but also he's made the highest grossing DC film of all time, Aquaman. And the way that he shoots action, I think, is really good. Now, you can criticize some of the cheesiness in the Aquaman films, but the action, you can see what's taking place. There's fun choreography, there's dynamic camera work, there's wide, long shots. And so you combined what he's good at, shooting action, horror, you can see where he could do a really cool Blade film. You even look at some of the action in like Malignant, the police sequence, and you think of a Blade movie that's a bunch of that would be very cool. Final name on here, this is one that a lot of people are tossing around because of a report that came out last week, Jordan Peele. So last week, it was reported that Jordan Peele met with Marvel Studios about a project and it didn't go well, or so, like it didn't happen. That's what was reported last week. And so then people are, Blade, because a week or two before that, they announced they hired a new writer. So could Jordan Peele be working on Blade? Could Jordan Peele be working on Blade? And then, of course, this week it's announced the director's dropped out. So you have a scenario where a very famous writer-director met with Marvel at a point in time where Blade currently is having writer trouble and does not have a director, and people start connecting the dots. Now, as for me, when I think of Jordan Peele in the project, like I doesn't make a lot of sense to me at first glance, because what in his career makes it obvious that big studio Marvel Blade film would be the best use of his time, or he would be the best for them, where he obviously did a bunch of legendary comedy, and then he does allegorical horror, like, you know, Twilight Zone-y allegorical horror. And these, but let's do Blade in the Marvel Studios MCU. Let's do Blade, the allegorical horror with social commentary. There's a pretty big gap between that and Blade in the MCU. So it's not entirely obvious what that would be. And if he were to do it, you'd want it to be, we're scrapping the whole thing, and we're letting Jordan Peele cook. Whatever he's going to do, like every script we have, we're throwing it out. Jordan Peele, go do your thing and run with it. If they announce that, Jordan Peele, not hired gun to do this, you know, Frankenstein script that 1,000 people have worked on, but no, Jordan Peele, go cook up a Blade movie for us. That's just interesting because I have no idea what that movie's going to be. I have no idea what he's going to do with it, but it intrigues me. Well, they do that. That doesn't sound like what they would do. That doesn't immediately seem particularly likely, but it would be interesting for that to happen. So maybe maybe something crazy like that is going to happen. So who do you want to direct the new Blade movie? Let me know down below in the comment sections who could knock it out of the park, or are you just kind of like, who cares? Cancel this thing. Start over when you have a clue. Stop trying to patchwork together this disaster of a film. Let me know your thoughts down below.